Okay. Thank you for coming today to see me in this presentation called Proposal Writing 1. Aptly described, right? Completely informative. Fantastic title, right? Hopefully it'll meet every expectation you have right now. So I am Faye Farmer. I have, well, a little bit about me. This is kind of my intro to people. Usually, people can find me quickly. I have a fairly easy to remember name, Faye Farmer, faye.farmer@asu.edu. People know me because I can help them write proposals. And the reason that I can do that is that I am one of the first accredited proposal managers at ASU. You might not know that is a thing. That is a thing. I am it. I worked on one of the largest proposals from ASU, which is over $100 million. It was not funded, but it was a great experience. And I supported a successful proposal and then transitioned to award for an engineering research center over the course of about 6 months of supporting that team. And I now manage a team that's completely devoted to proposal excellence and large and strategic initiatives at ASU. That team is research development. So we're the originators of this proposal workshop. You'll hear a little bit more about us as we go through, but that's a little bit about me and why I'm presenting today. You signed up. This is the promo for Research Academy. You signed up hopefully using Research Academy. If you didn't, I don't know how you're here. Research Admin is a great website to find information along the project lifecycle from initiation, which is finding your opportunity, all the way through to award. And then it has interactive features as you click through the life cycle of business. Importantly, it can also indicate where your research administrator is. Those of you, we'll talk a little bit more about research administration, but those are the first people you note in your life when you're going to pursue a proposal. And I'm going to pause for a minute. Do you want one of those guys to plug in? Because if you run out of battery, I'm going to feel really bad. Go grab one of those. Yeah, go grab one of those and then plug it in. I want you to be able to access your email during my presentation. Maybe you just pick up one of those sticks and you can walk it over.
Oh, there's a stick.
Yeah, and then you plug it in next to you. It's a fancy room.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, you have to plug that in too. She's got a little bit of work ahead of her, but at least she'll get her battery charged. So the last website that I'll bring you up to speed on is funding.asu.edu. This is the website that's organized by my office. So if you see anything horribly awry, please let me know. Again, my name is Faye Farmer. Faye.farmer@asu.edu. Very easy to remember. So what we post here are usually announcements on workshops, latest funding news, and then events. So this is one of the series of events we host over the year. You can sign up for weekly notifications very easily, and then you're just going to email every Monday in your inbox. Importantly, if you see anything limited by institution, this is the website you go to apply for that. Limited submissions has its own workshop. So become familiar with that as you proceed through life as a faculty member at ASU. If you have any questions about limited submissions, you can actually email limited submissions and they will answer everything. They'll even do a tutorial for you. Okay, so where are we in this workshop series? If you've been following along this year, you started in fall, in August. We launched with Understanding Your Sponsor. It's actually codenamed Landscape Analysis and Competitive Intelligence. Then you find the opportunity, which is codenamed Find the Opportunity. And then you create a budget, also codenamed Create a Budget. And then you outlined a proposal. This one was actually preparing a responsive proposal. That's codename. And now here we are, writing a proposal. Next workshop in November is going to be editing a proposal and tips and tricks on editing. And then finally, you're going to create and lay out your document in this. So it's not just about graphics, what Michael will present, but it's about the look and feel of a proposal and quick tips and tricks to do that. So that's where we're at right now. It's October, November, December. See the pattern? We do this every fall semester. So if you missed any of these, we recorded them and they're available voila, on this website. But you can also participate next semester too. The in-person interaction helps with asking questions. Okay, so we're going to talk about proposal writing. The first rule of Proposal Club is never talk about proposals. No, just kidding. There's a whole bunch of movie references. Some you'll get. This one is, Fight Club. And this one is Glengarry Glen Ross. I have not actually watched this movie, but this slide was made by somebody, and I thought it was so much work that I thought I'd put it in there. Always be compliant. So what does that mean? It means whatever the sponsor wants, you give the sponsor, right? It just says you parrot it back. Now, lucky for you, we did an actual webinar on this, and this was the last webinar, right? So if you were in there, she taught you how to go through a solicitation, break it up, start responding to what the solicitation wants you to respond to. It's the easiest way to be compliant. Your research administrator is the second way to be compliant. They are charged with double checking all the documents you have to submit. That is on YouTube. You can find it. You will get these slides at the end as well for those of you online. Okay, second rule of Proposal Club is, know your audience, right? Know your audience. Who will read it? Why should they care about you? And what do they want to achieve as they read your proposal? Not everybody's in it for the greater good. Most everybody's in it to spend money to make something out of that. And National Science Foundation is to make new knowledge. And NIH is to make new biomedical discoveries. And pick a foundation. Bill Gates. Yeah. NEA, National Endowment of the Arts, is to create great things that people can see, do, or hear. And luckily, we have covered that in a previous proposal development workshop, which is a competitive intelligence landscape analysis. It's figuring out what your sponsor wants. What are they funded in the past? What are they apt to fund in the future? And then the second part is finding your opportunity and understanding what they're looking for. Okay, so that brings you up to speed. Those are the things, those first two rules of Proposal Club. We're going to have them tattooed on your arm later. Okay, the third rule of Proposal Club is writing persuasively. Not really, it's persuasive writing. So in the effort to create a 45-minute piece of information for you to be able to digest and carry on for the rest of your lives, this is what we're kind of going to focus on. And within persuasive writing, we're actually going to talk about two aspects, voice and leading with benefit. So you're going to leave here with two items of new knowledge, hopefully. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, which is fine. Some of you will have to practice what I'm talking about. And some of you will go, this doesn't make any sense and it's not relevant to what I do every day. Totally okay. These are the two things that I find most important in my work. You can take classes on proposal writing and persuasive writing. Right? This is Lodestar. You can get a certificate. There's some out there. This is not a full day workshop. We've hosted those in the past. There is one NIH related training that we hosted in the spring. We can focus exclusively on a sponsor. You can exclusively focus on a mechanism. You can do an all-day meet and greet with NEA, things like that. So we can do that as a deep dive. That is not this workshop. You can also look on YouTube. So I just did grant proposal writing and I got that. And then I added my sponsor, NIH grant writing. Perfect. It's actually it's a grant application for NIH. And then NSF grant writing. I would assume that NEA would have the same thing, right? The funny thing with NEA is that they're very different from solicitation to solicitation, so they might talk about that in one of the webinars. But all of this information exists for you to access. It is free. Ours is as well. We post this workshop. Take advantage of it. These program officers are out there teaching you how to write a grant proposal. Take advantage of it. Okay, so out of persuasive writing, we know that these top three things bubble up regularly. Now, I'm not a rhetorician. I started college as an English major and quickly abandoned that. So I'm going to focus really on things that people who don't understand the English language or how to write, which is me, need to really internalize in order to write a good proposal. Now, the next step would be editing that content, which is the next workshop. Okay, logical narrative organization, kind of a given, and yet people don't always adhere to that rule. Clear language, the jargon has to be minimized, and convincing the reader, which really is the art of persuasive writing. You need to convince them in a way that a manuscript will not, a book will not, a book chapter will not. Convincing the reader that to fund you is your primary goal of a proposal. End point, period. So there's a couple resources out there that we like and have found rewarding and even inspirational. If you sit down and you flip through a book and you kind of just get reinvigorated, you may not have to do a book on your research topic. You might not have to you might get jazzed about reading articles, that's fine. But then getting into the frame set of writing a proposal is really just as important as understanding and getting the frame set into what you're pitching for a proposal. So I like this quote because it's hard to read, but good. The main cause of incomprehensible prose is the difficulty of imagining what it's like for someone else not to know something that you know. You spent your whole life figuring out what you're studying, or maybe not your whole life, most of your life, but just a lot of last week, right? This is really hard for you to project into somebody else and say, I really want you to understand what I'm trying to convince you of. It's hard for us to picture that. You should just understand me. And them nodding seems to reinforce that. Improving the quality of writing actually improves the quality of thought. It's an important fundamental piece. If you can write clearly, then people are going to understand what you're trying to do. If you write clearly and then build up to something very complex and a complex topic, they will give you all the room to do that. Gopin and Swan is a pretty famous article on scientific writing. I like it because it's very clear. Parts of it, some of the sentence structure is a little daunting, but it's very clear. It's one of the more cited references. We just bought this book last year because we thought it was really a very nice refresh. This one is kind of a standard. And then finally, we have lots of faculty on campus who have a lot of experience. This one was brought to my attention by Dr. Holman, who's in SMT, I think. Don't quote me on that, ACE maybe. Writing reveals the holes in your argument. This is something that's available on his website. And he's taught it on occasion. I would also mention that other faculty members teach specific mechanisms in grant proposal writing across campus. And I encourage you to ask your colleagues if they are teaching some such. Dr. Scotch and Dr. Stavros, and I can't remember his last name, are teaching F31 this semester. So there are these things that are going out in the world. So let's go back to the rules. Be clear. If you cannot be clear, then people will not follow you. There are types of writing. Technical, which is very dry and essential. This I excel at. Technical writing without emotion is really great for me. Totally okay. It's method sections. It's approach. It's method sections. It's protocols. That's great. Step by step. You do it, I do it. Manuscripts are there to prove that you have done it and then other people can do it. Versus persuasive writing, which is to tug on the heartstrings. Essentially, create a little bubble, invite people into your bubble, and convince them that this bubble really is the only bubble that should be funded. So a heart versus the emotion of hands. This is a broad statement. But manuscripts tend to be more technical, and then proposals are more persuasive. So if we talk about the logical narrative organization, I'll just go back, and Gopin and Swan spent a lot of time on logical narrative organization. The second bit of logical narrative organization flows with the shell document that we produced in the proposal development workshop prior. But also you can use headers as navigating tools. But then also in this next workshop, you'll talk about editing for breadcrumbs, right? So you say, here's my statement, here's my follow me along in my argument throughout the document, and creating almost a narrative arc through the proposal. So that will be touched upon at the next workshop as well. But we're going to focus on convincing the reader. Anybody know this movie? It's a great.
Thank you for smoking.
Thank you for smoking. Point to the lady in the back. with the dead battery. Thank you for smoking. It's a great persuasive movie. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. This is the one I knew in the slide deck. So we're going to focus on voice and first, and then we're going to talk about leading with benefit, which will be the majority of what we work on, and will melt your brains if you're not used to it. So write in active voice. First person active means the action is on the person at the front of the sentence, right? This is, I'm not talking about tense. I'm not talking about, there's a whole bunch of other grammatical terms that go with that. I'm just saying first person active. That's all I want you to learn. So we're done, right? So I'm gonna move on.
So it's like an ing ending, basically?
It's actually a verb, so I'm gonna do the action. So it can be I did something, I am doing something, or I will do something. So it can be future, past, or current. Present, I guess is the term. But I'm doing it. We are doing it. And we as a community are doing it. So it can be plural, it can be singular. Just active voice. There's a third person active, which is less popular, but active, which is Dr. Griffin is pioneering a technique. She is pioneering our center. Now, this is required in NSF summaries, and some other random applications might require it as well. So you have to be aware with your sponsor requirements when you use the voice. Is the weird little hiccup in our lives that NSF proposals can be written in first person, except for the project summary. And there might be other examples. That's our famous one. So a lot of people want to write in third person, and it's fine. It's less accessible, right? So I prefer first person. And the reason that people like third person is because it's deferential, right? It's not me. It's hard for me to draw accolades. And as faculty members, we've been taught that it's not about you, it's about the science, or it's about the research, or it's about the people, it's about the impact. I want you to get away from that. For proposal writing, it is about you. You are the important piece of that proposal. It's your idea, it's your work, it's your activity. And so you should embrace it and say me, me, me. You're welcome to use third person active because it works in the active part. But no passive, please. Now, passive, there are times for passive. That's totally okay. I would hazard a guess that proposals are not the place for passive. And that's where something is acted upon, right? So Dr. Griffin is being acted upon by the technique. Now, you have to practice this, because I still have to practice it. Not being an English major, I still have to practice it. So I look at my sentences and I say, oh my gosh, who is being acted upon by what? So why active voice? Generic question. It's more persuasive. I'm telling you about me. It's more emotional. I have a connection with you if I say, I want you to fund this. And it actually tends to shorten your sentences, which are also, it's helpful for a reader. Now, long sentences, and she'll get into this in the next workshop, but long sentences aren't verboten. They're not like, not allowed. But if you shorten your sentences, then I can read them quicker and I can get to your point quicker. Right? So that's, again, the breadcrumb idea that here's a little bit of information, here's a little bit of information, here's a little bit of information. There's 3 core reasons to use active voice. I can see you in the document. My sentences are shorter, and that's more, like it draws on my heartstrings, more persuasive, more of an emotional argument can be made. So here's an example. I took this first sentence of one of our analyses. Now my analysts have the same challenge where they don't want to be a part of the document. They want to say, we did this work for you. And which is fair because that's their role. But instead, it's really just that simple. It's a team of 3 people. Now, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. There's multiple ways to do this. And I just wanted to illustrate a few points. The center will provide education opportunities to over 50 students. So the action being received is by students. The center is the third person. And then, so here, it's just a general mess. The center is not going to provide the education opportunities, and I'm not convinced that I want to fund a center to do that. It's just not tugging on my heartstrings. So we will provide education opportunities. It's one option. It becomes, and these are all equally strong. As part of the center, we will provide education opportunities. This I like the most. Over 50 students will have access or take part in education opportunities as part of these center activities, right? So it becomes a little bit more, the center will provide education opportunities, something you could just glance over. Okay. So ways to check. And just read sentence by sentence and check for active, or get in the habit of writing actively. You can, if you have an external partner, you can reference them and then bring them into the fold. Say, we will work together on this. If you have community members, I will work with community members and we will work together. Okay, so this is your example. I actually Googled yesterday, worst passive sentence ever. This is not it. So obviously, giraffes roamed the savannah, right? So if I'm a giraffe, I roam the savannah would be better. Okay, so now we're going to talk about leading with benefit. So that's kind of just a fundamental, like you should do, make sure your voice is active. Leading with the benefit, and I don't want to oversell this, but it's hard. And the reason that I don't want to oversell it is because I'm going to go slow, and it will be maybe irritating. So I'm going to lower those expectations right away. But everything has a benefit, everything. And it's a useful marketing tool, but it's also really good, and it's to show the connection to the reader. So when I say everything has a benefit, I literally mean everything has a benefit. You can think this way after this workshop. Start thinking through art has a benefit, right? It's not just a thing. It is something that is conveying culture, history. It brings people together. It maybe codifies some kind of language or code. And also, you know, gears are important because it works on gears. Cars are important. Cars have a function, but they also have a benefit, which is to tool us around. It gets my children to school on time. It gets, you know, everybody to school on time. Now, if you want to package it, you can actually subsection things out. Right? So you can say a car has a radio. The radio is a thing that confers a benefit. The benefit of the radio is I get to either hear the news or I get to listen to the music that makes me happy, makes me not yell at my children. It helps time pass quickly, so I can easily speed my family to school. Everything has benefits. So then if I tie that back, I say my car, when I went to buy it, it had a radio, but the benefit of that radio is that I will not yell at my children as I quickly drive and drop them off at school because I will be listening to music. So leading with a benefit. There's a lot of people out there, and again, not the whole workshop on writing, so we're not going to practice writing, but people often talk about headline writing. Now, and there's a couple different ways to work on that. This is not headline writing. This is leading with the benefit, which is different. And I'll explain. So here, this sentence says, we will adapt spectral imaging techniques used exclusively by our team in biology and medicine, using different wavelengths of light to capture the details of faded ink and deteriorated parchment, which will allow archaeologists and historians to decode important historical documents. Okay, that's fun. Totally satisfying. And again, you're going to write a good proposal no matter what if you're very conscientious, if you've done the background work. Now, the whole point of this workshop is persuasive writing. So if we think this is first person active, great. The feature and discriminator, which we'll talk about next, this is an aspect of my approach. And then this is the benefit. So I've identified what the benefit is. And usually we write this way. We end with the benefit. This is important because, but it's usually found at the end of every paragraph. And especially those summary statements, right? If you write through the summary and you go to the last sentence, it says, this is important because we will advance new knowledge. We will bring people together. We will create new works. But What if we kept the first person active and we moved the benefit up? We will expand access and use of important historical documents to archaeologists and historians by specially adapting our spectral imaging techniques developed by our interdisciplinary team of biologists and medical professionals. So all of a sudden, I'm telling you the importance of my work. I'm opening up previously unopenable historical documents to the people who presumably, I know my audience, are the archaeologists and historians. That's my feature, which is my specially adapting our spectral imaging and our discriminator. I'm the only one with this team. So it's simply, let me go back. We will adapt spectral imaging. I'm telling you what I'm gonna do. Oh, you'll get the slides. And I'll go over this like 4 more times, so you get really tired of this, because it's a really intriguing way to think about how you're gonna write. We will adapt spectral imaging. So I've led, and as a researcher, I want to tell you all about my neat, cool toy. But I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to start with, hey, you people who are writing, who are reading this and going to fund me, this is important because I'm going to open this whole new line of inquiry for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about getting there. The key concepts I'm going to talk about today are features, advantages, benefits, and differentiators. And they're in this row for a reason. You have to do them in this row. I don't know why it is. I've tried to not do it in this way, but it's the way you do it. And again, I learned this about 10 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. And it's weirdly good at what it does. So feature is some discrete aspect of what you bring to the table. Is it your data set? Is it your community partner list? Is it where you're practicing? Is it your venue? Is it your grad students? Is it somehow you're bringing that discrete aspect? Now, to do this right, should be just one discrete aspect, because it's overwhelming if you do more than one. So think bigger, grander. It could be you. It could be that you're the only person who knows how to translate some language. Advantage. How can it help your funder? Now remember, we've gone through the workshop where we said, okay, our funder finds this important. We've gone through the workshop that says this is a solicitation I'm responding to. They've told me what's important because I've read all those documents and figured that out. So how can your discrete aspect help your funder? And then what's the benefit? So the benefit of that feature, the advantage, so if a feature is a data set, done. My data set's unique. The one thing I bring to the table. My advantage to having that data set is nobody else has that data. It can help my funder ask and answer a question that I think that is really quickly, because that data set doesn't exist anywhere else. And the benefit is it solves a funder's problem. Now my data set, if I have a data set on community members in the Philippines who want to, build a building, that is not a data set that will be relevant to NIH, perhaps, unless that building is related to some kind of public health. Right? You have to make sure that my data set is responsive to what that funder wants. So you have to identify that my data set will answer your question quicker. Benefits usually have some kind of quantifiable aspect. So you notice I said my data set will answer your question quicker. My data set is easily accessible. My data set is adapted regularly. So there's some kind of language around access, flexibility, some kind of quantifiable benefit. Now, the last term is differentiators. People spin this term out of control when we do proposals. They clearly say, it's a differentiator, it's a differentiator. But the two things that must be satisfied for a differentiator to exist is that you have it and they want it. And remember, there's not a benefit statement in there. It's I have the data set that my funder wants. We need to confirm that my sponsor wants it again. But the benefit is that my sponsor can access the data set quickly, it's relevant to what they want to do, and problem solves. Now that's a different statement than a differentiator which says, I have this, and it's important, and it will be relevant to the work that this funder is doing. Okay, so let's run through some examples. So I'm going to give you a pretty complex one. Drugs from chemicals synthesized from black mamba venom for treating Alzheimer's. That is a feature of my research. and this is all hypothetical, and we just totally pulled it out as thin air. So none of it's relevant, none of it's true. Our drugs are significantly more effective and less expensive than what's on the market. That is an advantage, right? It confers, it's something that we can produce in-house that's very cheap. Now, advantages that solve a funder's problem. Now, presumably my funder is involved with Alzheimer's because that's where my drug targets. And they also are interested in the cost of drugs. So I'm going to say the benefit is that we can help the quality of life and lifespan. So here's quality, health, lifespan for people who suffer from Alzheimer's and reduce costs. So here we have quantifiable increased quality of life. We can measure that, and we can measure lifespan, and we can measure worldwide costs. Now this is all faux, so we don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what we believe the benefit of our approach is. Now, the differentiators are that my partners, I have partnered with 3 universities across 3 countries and have preliminary research. Nobody else has preliminary research in this area. And my co-PI, Dr. Ramirez, has demonstrated success in using it in small scale. So he has pilot study data. Okay. So how do we roll all that together? Now, knowing that we're going to lead with a benefit. Well, this is okay. This is what we would usually work with. We will partner with these 3 institutions across 3 different, 3 universities, and study how synthesized neurotoxins and black mamba venom tightly bind to nerve cells. I haven't really worked in Alzheimer's, right? This is what we're going to do. This is our feature of our approach. This is a little bit of a discriminator. These are who we're going to work with, and a little bit of a feature of our approach. We've synthesized the drug venom. Yeah, it's okay. It's first person active. Hey, check. That's it. It's our feature. Okay, so what if we partner with the 3 universities to study how synthetic neurotoxins derived from black mamba venom work and how they could be used to treat people who suffer Alzheimer's disease from Alzheimer's. So a little bit of a benefit, right? So it's kind of an outcome. So we have first person active, we have the feature, and we have a little bit of a benefit. So we're going to help improve the lives of people suffering from Alzheimer's. Yeah. We're here to write persuasively. Gosh darn it, let's take it up a notch. Okay, yeah, lots of red. So we will partner with the 3 universities and study our synthesized venom and treat these a ginormous number of people with Alzheimer's. And we're going to decrease the cost of treating those people. So here we've talked about quality of life and cost for treatment. And by the way, this is really how we're going to do it. But this is our preliminary data statement, right? I've done this before. So you could actually say this plus the feature are discriminators. So you've peppered it through. But here's my benefit, slowly making its way up to the top. And so since this title of this section is called Lead with the Benefits, let's make it better, right? For 80 billion less than is currently being spent. Oh my gosh, sign me up. Whatever it is, I don't even care. It's $80 billion less, right? Now, again, we're doing some liberal writing here. We could effectively treat the 30 million people worldwide who suffer from Alzheimer's. And here, I've just squished all of that differentiator content into the end. My PI has worked in this before and knows how to do it. So I have preliminary data, and he is leading the multidisciplinary team. Now we have to assume that our funder wants this. Remember, the definition of discriminator is that our funder wants this. So I'm assuming that's a value. So again, much stronger, right? Because you're emotionally tied to that sentence, whether or not it's actually true with the numbers. But to lead with something like that just changes the tenor of it. Now, everybody I worked with, that's the process. They end up with the benefit at the bottom and slowly have to work their way back up. I believe that working with the feature, advantage, benefit, and discriminators in that order, it shortens the timeline. You don't have to write your paragraph all the way out and then circle the benefit at the bottom. Okay, so we're going to do this another example. Okay, we've done all that. I'm not going to repeat it. Very simple. Quick dry asphalt. It's self-explanatory. I won't say it again. You can drive over the asphalt almost immediately. Yeah, because it's quick dry asphalt. Yeah. Right. But the driving over it, that's important because roads are blocked less time. right? So I can get on the road quicker. My detours are less frequent, and fill out. So who am I applying for? I'm applying for a city contract to lay asphalt, right? So why would that be a benefit to them? Oh, sorry, discriminator. Sorry. So the differentiator is that we own this technology and we're the only people who can know how to lay it down, right? So it's something that I own and that they want. So we can lay it down for you and that's no problem. We own the patent and we're not just gonna give you the asphalt and assume that you know how to spread it out. We're actually gonna spread it out ourselves. Okay, so that benefit actually becomes this. Now again, these are kind of very basic revisions. Commuters barely notice the disruption to traffic when using our patented quick dry asphalt. So complaints to the public officials are decreased significantly. I'm in city government and I don't want to hear from the public about my broken roads, because I am pitching to a city government. Okay. Now, where's my evidence? I can say this, but you know, what? Sure, I love it. It's a great first sentence. Sign me up. I don't want to hear from my public about how disgruntled they are. Well, that's what I can end with, right? So I know we're the only ones we put it down. I know that we've done 100 jobs, and we can actually keep stats on that. We've decreased the time to get back on the road. So here we have schedule savings, we have cost savings, we can do satisfaction ratings, anything that adds to this statement. If I wanted to do, I could do with a 10% decrease in calls to officials or something like that. I don't know how I could do that, but I can do that. Okay. Now, let's go back to my intro, because I'm going to tell you my benefit statement. My intro was a benefit statement. So I have 10 years of experience, and my audience, they're faculty members, right? When I go out in the world, I am approaching faculty members and faculty member teams. So I have 10 years of experience. Boom, I have stuff that most people don't have. So it could be just a differentiator, right? It's a feature that's unique to me, but it doesn't have to be. How it can help? I usually can figure out what you want to say, right? I can repurpose your language really quickly. But that my benefit is when I stand up here and I say, oh, I can quickly rewrite whatever you want to say and make it more meaningful and frame it in a way that it's responsive to the sponsor. And then my discriminator is that I have certification. You heard me say I work at one. You don't even know what the heck that $120 million was, but it sounds cool. All right. Supported successful in NSF ERC. Doesn't matter because it's successful.
And when you say discriminator, is that the same as differentiator?
Yeah, see.
Okay. Pretty much?
Pretty much.
Because they're like, these are sort of
I do, and I've noticed it just now. I'm going to start saying differentiators to be more clear. We're going to call them differentiators going forward. And if I say discriminators, then I want you to just call me on it. Okay. Okay, so this was layered in there because it's an award. People tend to respond to awards. And my people are layered in there because I know it's important. So I can say I have a team behind you, right? So I chose my audience, and that's what I chose to show you as evidence. So that's what I presented today to you as my benefit statement. And then these were my evidence. That's what my evidence statement was. So it backs up this really emotional, like, ooh, she can work for me, really great, awesome. So the next one is, I know your audience, right? You guys maybe don't care about the $120 million. You probably don't care about the ERC. So what if I said, I spent 5 years supporting proposals at BioDesign, and that worked primarily with individual faculty and teams. And during that time, I worked on successful NIH R01s and NSF proposals that were mostly successfully funded. And I eventually learned the role and decided that it was a position on campus. So that's much more user-friendly and much more targeted to this audience, right? So that's knowing your audience. So I'll flex into my benefit statement if I'm meeting somebody who wants to run a big proposal, or I want to talk to a faculty member who wants to put in a tiny proposal, right? And you should be able to flex in that benefit statement as well. So, and then finally, first person active, because that was not first person active. So it makes it much more personable. Do you see the difference? So if you're reading it, Faye can do this, Faye can do that, Faye can do this. No, faculty at issue can easily find me I'm drawing you in. I am the person you want to talk to. I supported proposals. So that's just to show you kind of the difference between the voice. So one more. Quinn is a proposal manager in my office, and we did this as part of what he brings to the table as a proposal manager. Now, our audience is faculty teams. So he's going to work with faculty teams on large-scale proposals. So he has an extremely calm demeanor. That is a feature of what he brings to the table. It's not a data set. It's just who he is. It can create a calm team that focuses almost exclusively on that proposal. It just decreases drama, right? So the benefit is that when you're a calm team and you're listening to one another, you can presumably function at a higher level and accomplish more. Who doesn't want to accomplish more? So our differentiator is that his calm manner can enable even the most dysfunctional teams. It's a big assertion, but we think it's true, so that they can improve cohesive messaging and proposals and increase their competitive nature, increase competitive nature of their proposals. Okay, so we think that that's what he brings to the team. That's also what we think the teams want. And you'll see increase the competitive nature of their proposals. Every team wants to increase the nature of their competitive proposals. If you're not in the right game, right? So that's what his benefit statement ended up being. So if he goes in and says, I'm Quinn, I help you, I'm very calm, we increase the production of your proposal in a competitive way. And now where's my evidence? Well, I would quickly write up a sentence that says, he supported these many proposal teams over the past 6 months, with half of these teams submitting to sponsor at least a day prior to sponsor them. Now we're talking teams of like more than 5 people, right? So that's a pretty big accomplishment. Okay, your turn. This is the second sentence you will write in this workshop. And those of you online, please take the liberty of doing it. So what's a feature, a discrete aspect of your approach or research or yourself or your topic or your science or writing, whatever it is that you do? Now this is completely scalable. You can be a grad student, you can be a postdoc, you can be a staff member. You bring something unique to the table. What is that?
I asked a question about the benefits.
Sure.
And I was in your presentation, I was also questioning myself, how much far can you go in the benefits, describing the benefits of your outcome, because you don't know yet. So what is the convincing statement if you are not serious enough? You know that the reader is a competent reader, and you can't predict things you can't know. So I would like to be a little hesitant to write it. And this is what you need. And this is the solution. So how can you just balance that?
I think with careful editing and word choice. So the question for those of you online who didn't hear it was that how do you balance being really assertive with far-reaching goals that you think it can impact somebody downstream? So if I feel like I will make time travel possible, right? That might be a benefit that I can clearly articulate how my research is going to get there. But my sentence is, the research performed today in my lab may speed or accelerate discoveries to that may lead to time travel. May, yeah. Could significantly impact, shorten the time to discovery of time travel, improve our, I can do this all day, improve our understanding of time travel so that other bigger brains can get there faster, right? So it's how you want to negotiate that line. But I would assert that writing that first sentence in the most positive and beneficial, like really direct benefit way, and then walking back to your comfort level might be a good editorial way. Okay. Those of you online, have you finished? And those of you in the room, what is a benefit? Or what is a feature? Do they have one they want to share?
So I work at the Crew Center, and I'm currently working on proposals, so I thought I'd kind of put some of the information in. And the unique feature that we're highlighting is our interdisciplinary approach to sustainability awareness.
So is it so your language is, you're highlighting your unique approach to interdisciplinary. So the approach is the unique part, is the feature. Your approach to interdisciplinary work
Mhm.
is the feature you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like don't overwrite it.
Mhm.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Sorry, that was the end of that statement. Fabulous. Because, and that tends to be a really common thing. It's like we put, 4 people from different disciplines in a room together and they actually don't fight. That's kind of an issue thing. But it's great if you can actually demonstrate that example, and that will be the evidence, right? So advantage. How does putting 4 different people on biomimicry in a room together so that they can work together, how does that confer an advantage? Who's your sponsor? Can I ask?
Spencer.
Spencer Foundation.
So education research.
Education research is Spencer Foundation's motivation. That's what's important to them. So how does that confer an advantage to the work you do for them? Okay, I think now the other example is, right, so I have a unique technique, or I have a unique composition. A very common advantage of interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary work is that it leads to transdisciplinary discoveries. Important. It's practice. You're not going to get this right. I mean, it just takes becoming familiar with it. So, benefit is next. So the benefit to Spencer Foundation, I'm just going to run with that example. So did you come up with an advantage? So you're.
Yeah, I said increase a wide range of student engagement with bio-inspired sustainable design or innovation. So increase the students.
Yeah, boil it down. So increase students. So your feature is your interdisciplinary approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your advantage. So if you mentioned students in your second sentence. So if your interdisciplinary focuses on students, you should actually roll them into that.
Okay.
Right? So if you say, now again, this is the whole, you have to focus on one aspect, right? And run it through this example. Ish. So interdisciplinary teams of students, the advantage is they are, what's the advantage again?
Getting more students involved in sustainable design and innovation.
And so Spencer Foundation wants to increase student involvement.
They want to study education at large. So we're focusing on sustainability awareness.
Okay, that's fine. But so if Spencer Foundation likes, so you're going to solve their problem. You're going to, how it can help your funder. So remember, your students, your interdisciplinary team of students is going to help Spencer Foundation understand sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the benefit is that with that new knowledge, Spencer Foundation will be able to understand sustainability and package it up and ship it out. Now, again, it has to be, I would just really decrease the number of subjects in your sentences. That's all. Does anybody else want to run through that with themselves? It's hard, and it takes practice. Do you want to try?
Is the benefit, just to clarify,
Yeah.
the benefit is to them, or like what are their goal, or like what it is to, because there's 2 different approaches.
Yeah. No. So it's always the benefit to the world, to the user, to the person who's reading it. Advantages to solve a funder's problem. Now the funder might want to. So the funder's problem. So my previous example on quick dry asphalt was to secure a contract with a city. My city's problem is a street. Now that might be lots of people's problems, but right now I'm going to focus on their problem.
So this is like is this part of the ask, like what they wanted us to fulfill and how we're fulfilling it?
It's really, yes. So the question is, yeah, if you haven't heard that online, it's part of the ask. So when you're reading a solicitation, so NSF's big goal is to develop new knowledge, new fundamental knowledge, right? So that's a funder's problem, is how do we develop new knowledge? Now that's a really big ask.
Yeah.
In your solicitation, it'll say, we want to figure out new things in chemistry or something, like new modes of chemistry. So that's a problem that's stated, it's new knowledge at the NSF level, but it's also in the solicitation as new chemistry. So you have to choose how you're going to interpret that. Again, that's why it could be broad scale. It could be very granular. This is completely scalable. So it's up to you to define what the funder's problem is. So in Spencer Foundation, you heard me say, what is their problem? Well, their mission is to increase education, and I'm going to forget education.
They're just doing like a research,
Education
a broad,
research.
this is like one of their most broad proposals, just research and education.
But Spencer Foundation, so then it's a broad solicitation that says, we just want to know more about education and research and education. So it's up to her to figure out what the previous boards were involved in and what they look at. She thinks that I actually would think that sustainability might be a really interesting way to do this. So if you do your feature is sustainability, your advantage is nobody does sustainability education research, and your benefit is Spencer Foundation will learn more about sustainability because nobody else has this market.
Can I ask a question that relates to my example?
Yes.
Well, because we're going.
Yep, yep.
Basically, our grant, the request is that we have to help improve the lives of like 10,000 middle income people by $10,000 or more.
Management futures.
Yeah.
We're somewhat familiar.
We are. So when we're describing the benefits, do you open it basically with like, we're seeking to do your ask by this, or do you say we're doing this and it'll do your ask?
No, I think, well, so again, you can edit it to heck and back, but start with that sentence. We're going to change the lives of 10,000 people by 10%. And we can do that because our feature is this, right? So, and then you roll into the discriminators. It is absolutely okay to start with a sponsor's requirement of, we want to discover new things. We want to discover new planets. We'll achieve that with the following unique data set or telescope or whatever. If you compare it back to the sponsor, you should. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then
I
in the
just wasn't sure if
second,
that's like too much to be like.
well, then you send it to your external reviewer and you say, oh, is that bad? And they go, you might want to comment down a little bit. So in the editing, successive editing, you might get there. But again, the whole point of this workshop is to get you to write persuasively. If you're going to convince them, you say you're going to achieve their objectives. Go, girl, right? Did you have an example?
No, that's
Good point. Okay. That's why they're putting out the solicitation in the first place, right? They want you to solve their problem. Okay, then finally the differentiator. What do you bring to the table and why it's important to them? So if you have, again, I'm going to just use sustainability. So if you have a feature of sustainability with first school in sustainability, we have, X number of students, and your advantage is that we're going to teach you about sustainability, and your benefit is that this will expand your portfolio in sustainability. My differentiator is we are the only school in the first school in the nation to be doing sustainability, and we've done it for X number of years. And it's important because understanding sustainability education is the only way that we'll save our planet. And Spencer Foundation needs to know about it. Right? Okay, so then after you do that, I'll give you more time. The benefit statement. Oh, sorry. Just name two of them. Jot them down.
Why did you use these as an order? Because actually you said benefits should be first, is it?
You have to walk through the discrete aspect before you get to the advantage, the benefit, because people always want to start with the benefits.
Yeah.
And it's not vague. When we overwrite, we make grand assertions, and then we have to backpedal through why that's important. Right? If you do it this way, you're grounded in some aspect of your technical approach, and you know why it's advantageous to them. It is, I kid you not, and it's also taught. So proposal management is an industry term, and it's taught to put proposal managers in industry. Because in industry, everybody is an engineer that then writes up their little engineering stuff and sends it to a proposal manager that rewrites it. And so this is a quick way to teach people how to think, what is that benefit? You might know the wind speed over a wing, but why is that of importance to Boeing if you're going to subcontract for developing a wing? And I have tried it different ways, and it doesn't work well. And sometimes we just go up to benefits and skip over differentiators. But I think differentiators are a really important thing because we all have to recognize the value that we bring to the table. And then you clearly tie it to your sponsor as well. And it shows that you know your sponsor. Okay, and then you have your benefit statement. It is easily found and can quickly rewrite techniques or content. And then you have your evidence, which is, what's your evidence that you're worth all that? Have you done it before? Have you shown that it can work in other topics? Have you personally participated? Is your team the only people are your team the only people who can do it? You've been doing it for 10 years as part of the global or the School of Sustainability. You're done. Okay, so your job, should you choose to accept it, is to practice your benefit statement. And then spend a little bit of time with it, and then rewrite that first paragraph of your proposal. Now, what I've just taught you is scalable. You can write that benefit statement at the beginning of every paragraph. It's creepy. But you can also do it by section. And you can also just focus on the summary or the abstract of your proposal. Okay. And then edit the heck out of it. And to do that part, you want to come back. Okay. And she'll show you some really cool tricks on using Word. And then the layout to graphics is really, really inspirational. So I want to encourage you to do that. They're all found at researchacademy.asu.edu. Thank you for your time today. And those of you online, if you have a question,